Radio.
As advertised, as promised, now joining us on Black Sky Radio, Barry Pepper. Barry, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Been a big fan of yours since way back in the day.
Well, thank you kindly.
I'd like to kick off the questioning, Barry, by bringing up the famous story of when you were, I think, about 5 years old, and your dad and your brothers built a 50-foot long boat, and
Yeah.
you sailed around for years and lived in the boat. Tell us that story.
Yeah, well, my parents, my mother and father, they built a 50-foot fiberglass sloop in their backyard on Vancouver Island, where I was born, and they launched it in, I guess, '76, and then we moved on to it as a family, and we spent a few years in the Canadian coastal waters, and then worked our way down to the U.S. and Mexico, and then off to the South Pacific, and spent a few years in the South Pacific in various island groups, Tahiti and Tonga and the Marquesas and New Zealand and Hawaii and Rarotonga and the Tuamotus, and it was an eye-opening experience for a young boy. And my parents I think they were always fascinated with National Geographic and had just wanted to expose us to a different life than what they had seen shaping up around them, and they want, it was a way of exposing us to different cultures and races and religions and ways of life that were different from our own, and we weren't a wealthy family. We were sort of middle class, and my father was a lumberjack, so he worked in the woods and in Canada and fell trees for a living, and he worked also as a fisherman, and so he was just a regular blue collar dad and sort of a jack of all trades, and so we weren't able to go to the really fancy ports and harbors and yacht clubs and things like that. We spent all our time in the islands with the locals and people living on the poverty line, and you're living in sort of corrugated iron in grass roof shacks, and it was a tremendous thing to be exposed to as a young boy, because we lived with them. We would anchor the boat in a harbor and then row ashore and spend most of our time with them and learning, how to spearfish and how to climb coconut trees and trade and sort of live the way they were living. And then we would go to the ports to, get supplies and then back to the island groups. And we lived on the boat, and then we came back to Canada, and we lived on the boat for probably a total of 5 years. And my father's actually still sailing the same boat. He's in, I guess, 30, what am I, 43? I'm going to turn 43 on the 4th here in a couple of days. Yikes. He's still sailing the same boat in Thailand. He's in Thailand and Malaysia right now. And when I was in my mid-20s, I had a bit of a distant relationship with him, and I wanted to get to know him better. So I asked him if we could go sailing together. And so we did a trip together, just the two of us, and we sailed from Canada to Hawaii. So we went down the coast again and sort of retraced our routes. This was the year before Saving Private Ryan, and my career was just beginning, and it really hadn't sort of taken off, and it was a life-changing time for us on the boat. It was 4 months, just him and I together, and we sailed down the coast and then from San Diego to Hawaii. And that crossing, I've sailed to Hawaii several times now on the Moonlighter, but that particular crossing as a young man, with just my dad and I, was really special. So it took us about 18 days to cross from San Diego to Hawaii, and there was times where there's no wind, you're just in the doldrums, and the boat's just kind of, on glass calm Pacific, and you got to find something to talk about. So, we got to the bottom of a few things, and it was fabulous. And I I left Hawaii with a great resolve and ended up meeting Spielberg shortly thereafter. I moved to Los Angeles and met Steven, and off we went to do Saving Private Ryan. And,
Wow.
yeah, so it's an interesting journey. But yeah, it's a big chapter of my life.
Yeah.
How did that meeting come about with Steven Spielberg?
He was casting Saving Private Ryan. It was just like a cattle call of thousands. They were looking for actors, and I just went in and read with, like I say, on hundreds or thousands of others. And I guess he just liked what I had done with my interpretation of Private Jackson, and so he asked to meet with me. And what was so cool about the meeting was he was shooting Amistad at the time, and so they had the Amistad, the ship, in a big airplane hangar in Van Nuys, and California. And I went out there, and they're shooting this scene with Anthony Hopkins and Jaimin Hinsu up on the deck of Amistad, and sort of recreating this scene that they'd shot at sea. And so then he calls cut and calls Barry Pepper up on deck. And so it was a really, it was an amazing moment for me. And
that's got to be a little surreal.
It was, because I was just this wet behind the ears Canadian kid, and from a very small town, and I'd never experienced anything like that before, and so I just shut up and let him talk, and I think that he might have appreciated that. So then he hired me.
Now, when you got hired for Saving Private Ryan, I don't know, you might not be aware of this, but Ross and I did a series of interviews 2 years ago that was the 10th anniversary of the Band of Brothers.
Yeah, no, I did. I saw that on your website.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we got to interview almost all of them. We did like 35 interviews over the course of 18 months. And, of course, we talked with a lot of the guys behind the scenes as well, and one of them was Captain Dale Dye. And the boot camp experience. Now, did you have the same boot camp experience?
Yeah, we were all in it together. Tom Hanks and Vin Diesel and Ed Burns, and just the core group of guys. Hanks' unit in Saving Private Ryan, except for Matt Damon, who even wanted to keep out of the boot camp so that we would sort of meet him for the first time when we met him. So he kind of wanted the storyline to unfold the way it does in the film for us. So he sent us all to boot camp for a couple weeks, and we spent a week out in the bush, and it was in outside of I'm trying to remember the name of the town now, but anyway, it was England, and we were out in the woods, and it was just miserable weather, raining the whole time. And the way that Captain Dale Dye and Stephen created this boot camp was that they wanted it to be like a time capsule. They wanted us to be in our World War II, wool uniforms and fatigues, and eat the boxed rations the way that the men did at that time, and just everything was done as authentic as possible. So we slept in canvas tents, and the exact tents that the men would have slept in. We slept with our rifles at our side. We cooked our food over an open fire, and just slogged it out in the mud and the rain, and it was miserable, but it was a great experience. And
I think the name of the town you were looking for was Hatfield.
That's right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, there was an aeronautics base out there, an old airfield that we took over, and Stephen built both Vierville and Rommel, the towns, the French towns that were in the film. He built those from scratch there. That was extraordinary.
Yeah, those guys working together, the three of them, with Dale's boot camp and Tom and Spielberg's knowledge of every little detail of what they need to do, everything that they put their fingers on seems to just be golden. And your role, I got to tell you this, your role as the Sniper Jackson in Saving Private Ryan was my favorite character, and I still, to this day, steal lines that you say. One of my favorite lines out of that movie is, "Keep your head down, boys. This man's got talent." talking about the other German.
Yeah, he was that was an extraordinary character to play. It was certainly much in part to do with my work with Captain Dale Dye, that a lot of those attributes came to be for the character. The left-handed shooting was something that he and I had worked on, because I'm left-handed and very left-handed, and so he said, that during World War II they wouldn't have issued a left-handed rifle. You would have had to become ambidextrous as a sniper. Depending on where you were shooting from, you would have had to been versatile. So that's where we decided on coming over the top of the rifle and working the bolt from the left. And it was a really interesting just little detail, and that came out of spending a couple weeks in boot camp. So I just think that rehearsal time and that boot camp experience was just so invaluable for all of us, especially working with veterans and just getting to know the equipment so well. I mean, I could field strip my 45 and my rifle blindfolded and put it back together by the time we left boot camp.
That's awesome. That's actually very amazing. But I'm guessing, growing up in the Pacific Northwest with a lumberjack for a father, that wasn't the first time you held a rifle. No. I mean, I come from pioneer stock, hard scrabble people, farmers and lumbermen and hunters and fishermen, and they were settlers of really hard country here, and so you certainly always draw from your own bloodline. I remember before I did True Grit, I remember talking to my dad about my grandmother, Grandma Pepper, and he said that she rode horseback 8 miles through the forest in late September in northern Canada. So there would have been snow on the ground to give birth to him. Wow.
She rode home with him the same way after he was born. Just sort of. That's my grandmother. That's only 2 generations ago. So it's not. You don't have to draw on your bloodline and put it into, bring it to the screen. And yeah, my dad, that's the way he raised us when we came back from Canada. Well, actually, when I was born here on the island as well, he was a hunter and a fisherman, and he was a hunter for sustenance, not for trophies. He hunted for deer and elk and moose, and that's the way he fed us. And I remember them always using everything, the hide. He would tan the hide. I remember him actually cutting the antlers into rounds for buttons, and that was just the way of life. We lived on the ocean, so he fished, and so we always had salmon and clams and oysters and crabs, and then he hunted in September for venison, and I try to continue that tradition in my life. I hunt and I fish, and I have an organic garden and a big organic orchard, and I love to be on the ocean and fishing, and I'm trying to raise my family that same way. I raise mason bees. I raise bees for my orchard and garden, and that it's just being as close to the land as possible. I mean, I'm really blessed to live here on the West Coast part-time. I'm a dual citizen. I became a U.S. citizen in 2006. So I'm a dual citizen, so I sort of bounce back and forth. But when I'm in Canada, it's just such tremendous place for foraging. Every season there's something to forage here. You got wild mushrooms and ferns and nettles, and we live on the ocean, so it's just bountiful. And so yeah, I try to continue that. And I'm not I'm a gun owner in both countries, but I'm a highly trained and person with guns, and I respect them, and I value them for the tool that they are. I believe in if you're going to eat meat, that you at least understand where it comes from, and you value that ability to harvest it. And so I'm not a trophy hunter. I have no interest in trophies, but I do hunt.
I couldn't agree with you more. My cousin and I actually run a small outfitter out of Kansas, a boutique outfitter. So if you ever want to go whitetail hunting, let me know. We'll just make that happen. But we don't do a lot of trophy hunting. I mean, we like the racks when we get them, but for the most part, we just fill the freezer. And
there's nothing better. I think people don't realize, what an extraordinary meal that is, to have a prime piece of venison in September. They're just beautiful.
Yeah, one of my all-time favorite meals, and I didn't like this when I was a kid, is fresh venison liver and onions.
That's one of my dad's favorites. Yeah, I'm not as big a fan of liver, but I do enjoy venison. It's just one of those. And from my youth,
there's just something nice about that venison liver that doesn't have. I don't know if it's just an acid that's missing or that's not present that's in the beef or whatever. But
I find so much beef. So much beef is raised with grain, and it's just not natural to their bodies. They're grass eaters, and I think that's what's so sweet and beautiful about a wild meat like venison is that it's raised naturally. No antibiotics and things like that.
And for my money, there's nothing better on the planet than elk.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
what's the most extraordinary thing is that I'll go up into the mountains sometimes, and and you may not harvest anything, but just to hear the bugling of an elk, it sends a shiver down your spine, or just to be, in the wild. That's really where I go to decompress. It's funny. I think I was born 150 years too late. I blacksmith and I gold pan, and I really enjoy being in the mountains. I'm an avid fly fisherman. In fact, being on Lone Ranger for 8 months with Gore Verbinski, the director, he's also a diehard fly fisherman. So we got to fly fish in some of the most epic places in the world. We were, well, maybe not the world because we weren't in Scotland, but in the Southwest, on the Rio Grande, we were in Colorado, we were in Santa Fe, just in John Ford country down in Monument Valley, Utah. It was just amazing for fishing and wildlife. Sometimes in the morning we'd drive up into the high country and get into some remote, valley bowl, and there'd be a herd of elk out there, and then if you had a day off, you could go and hit the rivers with your fly rod and catch some trout for lunch. And it was really what an experience that was.
Now, do other actors look at your outdoor activities and become jealous, or do they go, "What are you doing? You're a superstar. I don't understand this outdoors dirtiness"?
I don't know. I don't have a lot of actor friends. I find it, most of my as soon as I'm done working, I'm out of there. I'm like I say, I usually retreat into the mountains or to my place in Canada where I can just kind of sort of shed all that.
Well, let's direct this back to some of your work. Tom Hanks's Saving Private Ryan, and then The Green Mile, almost back to back. You get to work with Matt Damon twice, Tom Hanks twice. What keeps these guys being drawn to you as an actor?
Gosh, I don't know. I think they're if you look at their work, they're just so authentic. They're just so skilled as actors, and Tom now as a producer. And I look at not only their body of work as actors, but their life is in charity and activism. I just think their heart's in the right place, and I just seek people out like that, and hopefully they feel the same way about me. But I think it's more in terms of, say, working with Matt again. True Grit was just an incredible script and a great book, and I went after that one much like I did with The Lone Ranger when I caught wind that Johnny and Gore were going to team up and do that. And so I'll go hunting projects. You just know that you can't let them go by without doing something, being a part of it somehow. And so you just end up, we're sort of like a circus family in this business. You you live a bit of a gypsy life, and you end up crossing paths again and again, and that's a really enjoyable part of our business, is when you get a chance to work with some of the same guys over and over again that you really like.
Now, Green Mile is, as we said at the beginning of the show, it's one of those movies that's in everybody's top 10 favourite movies. I mean, the impact that movie had worldwide was just tremendous. When you were doing the final scenes, the execution scenes for that, that was some powerful acting, man. Was that physically draining?
It is, because it's never shot as in such a compressed way that obviously it's presented on film. You shoot scenes like that sometimes for a couple of days, or sometimes it's completely, as you know, it's completely out of order. You may shoot that scene first day on the schedule of the film. You haven't even set foot on the Green Mile. You haven't, interacted with the other characters. It really does take a tremendous amount of inner work. You really have. That's where your research and all of your inner work as an actor, creating the character, comes into effect. Is you have to be able to draw on what you've created, the story you've created in your mind's eye. But we're so blessed with these great stories, these great actors that you're getting to work opposite. And, all you really have to do is just breathe in and look at that other actor in the eye. And if they're in the moment, then it'll put you there too.
Did you expect the Green Mile to go on to be so big, so popular?
No, I really didn't. I was so green at that time that I just, I think, like everybody else, I was just enamored by the script and thought, wow, what wonderful company to work with. But it really is the story that attracts you, and so you don't really think too far beyond that. I think now I'm a little bit more aware of what, I think I have a little bit of, bit of dog's blood in me. I can smell the truth, and I know what to avoid now and what to hunt, and so I can seek out projects that I think that are going to reach an audience, and based on how they touch me, if they move me, and I care, and I continue to care after I've read them, and I want to read it again, then I have a pretty good sense of what I think an audience is going to be drawn to.
Well, and I think you're doing a great job of it. Before we move on past this, I got one more question about True Grit. Did you, 'cause I know you ride horses. I've done my due diligence. I've seen that. Did Matt Damon have issues riding a horse? 'Cause he's, downtown Boston guy.
I don't know. I don't think so. He's done a few, hasn't he? He did All the Pretty Horses.
Oh, that's right.
And no, he was very comfortable on horseback. Who was a real equestrian was Josh Brolin. Very, very accomplished on horseback. But you also go through a cowboy boot camp, and so they take you through. You sort of restage the scenes that you're going to shoot on horseback, and the gunfights and various things like that. And so you're quite familiar by the time the cameras are rolling.
They start the greenhorns off on trail ponies.
Yeah, that's right, on sawhorses.
Oh, that's great. Now your latest endeavor, not the one that just finished in post production. We'll get into that in a minute. But Snitch, working with the Rock and all the other fantastic. Do we call him the Rock anymore? Or is it Dwayne Johnson?
Well, what's interesting is I believe he's still the wrestling champion. So I think he's very much alive and well in that realm as well. So you never know who you're talking to there. But no, I couldn't believe his versatility as an actor, and he's just a really humble, sweet, authentic guy. Just the real deal. So I think that's what attracts his legions of fans.
Absolutely,
a genuine guy and very talented. I mean, this is a $15 million independent that was a risk for him. It was a little less action, a little more conversation, and not his normal fare. And I thought he did an amazing job of it. And I think it's a good film to be proud of.
Well, I gotta give a little bit of shout out to the cinematography department and the camera crew, because the angles they used during the entire shooting of that, even when you guys are standing right next to each other or face to face yelling at each other, didn't look like he was 7.5 inches taller than you.
Hey, wait a second. He's not 7.5 inches tall.
Well, I'm only going off of what I can read. I don't know exactly how tall you are, but it says 5'10". He's 6'6". That's close.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I mean,
that's funny. It was funny because I'm like 170 pounds soaking wet, and he's like this
280-pound ripped god of muscle.
Yeah, he's a brick wall, and I'm having to put my finger in his chest and put him in his place. That was humorous. He committed 100% to that role, and the role is of this very humbled father, and I think that's why he's just a complete fish out of water in this picture. And I think that's why Rick Romanois, the director, cast him, as he wanted to show that it doesn't matter if you're 6'7" or 5'6", you're going to be buckled to your knees when you get into this drug world, and nobody's a hero. So he sort of thought Dwayne would be perfect casting to show that it doesn't matter how big you are, they'll destroy you in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, there's no love for life in that arena.
That's right.
They just don't they don't play that game. You either do it or you don't, and if you don't, well, you're in a unmarked grave out in the woods somewhere.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, it's a very powerful movie. I hope everybody takes the time to watch it. I had the opportunity to watch it earlier or late last week, and it just blew me away. You did an absolutely phenomenal job, and I don't know if you did you have to lose weight to play that character in Snitch? Because you look very gaunt, and the beard, of course, makes you look crazy.
I think the beard tends to transform your face. It's obviously it's a very it's been called an epic beard. It's a very long scraggly goatee, and so it tends to elongate your face. But no, not particularly.
That wasn't your beard, was it? That was glue on, right?
It was partially mine, and partially because I was between two pictures, so you sometimes have to. You're running back and forth between two film sets. You have to have stuff.
What was more epic, the beard or the teeth in True Grit?
Yeah, those teeth were pretty gnarly. Yeah, that was a lot of fun too. That was part of the history of that character in True Grit. Lucky Ned Pepperhead had a dust up with Rooster Cogburn about a year before the film opens, and Rooster shot Ned in the face. So I had this wonderful prosthetic, this big hair lip and scar up through my mustache, and my teeth were all broken and busted, and I took that backstory and created the sound and the vocal dialect for the character based on, I figured that his jaw must have been broken when he got shot in the face, and so everything was very locked and forward, and it was just really kind of an interesting speech pattern. I had a lot of fun with that.
One of my other all-time favorite movies, I'm just like a regular typical American wingnut. I enjoy the war films, and you did a fantastic one. We Were Soldiers. Mm-hmm. You played Joe Galloway, the famed Vietnamese photojournalist.
Yeah.
What was that experience a lot different than your Saving Private Ryan? Or did you get to see the action kind of through a different set of eyes because you weren't wearing the rifle and the helmet?
Yeah, it was different, and very much in that sense. I elected to do boot camp just for the fun of it, just because I wanted to run the courses with Mel Gibson and the rest of the crew and cast, and that was a great experience. That was different in that we had some just a completely different boot camp. It was a more modern boot camp. I believe we were at Fort Benning, where you're crawling under barbed wire in the mud at night, and they're firing a 50 caliber machine gun over your head, and it was electrifying. Some of the experiences that we had during that boot camp I didn't want to miss, But as the reporter, Joe wouldn't have had that experience. So I spent a lot of time, after we finished that boot camp, I spent a lot of time with Joe, just one-on-one, speaking to him about why he went and what it was that he saw, and those were very, very difficult conversations, because when he found himself engaged in that firefight in the Idrang Valley, and he had to help carry burnt bodies that had been roasted by napalm or friends of his, and pick up a machine gun and defend himself and his brothers. Some of the stories that he shared with me were just I'll never forget them, and some of them were captured in the film, where he picks up a young boy, Jimmy Nakayama, and all his skin comes off of his legs, where he tries to pick him up, and his boots crumble to ash in his hands, and he's left with this young boy's flesh in his hands, and it was one of the most horrifying moments, just sitting there at a cafe, a diner, having Joe tell me that story, and the emotion that came to him, and then us recreating it on film. Those weren't Hollywood moments. Those were real men, real lives, and real stories. And I'm actually I'm shaking right now just retelling that. But funny, you put all these stories away for so long, because it's been 10, 11 years since I did that film, and yet just telling it now, I'm just sort of shaking.
Well,
anyway.
and that was one of the more powerful scenes in the movie. And when I've watched the movie probably a dozen times, and when you talk about Joe's experience when he went to pick up the guy and the skin just falls off in his hands, one of the most poignant, powerful parts of that, because nobody, unless you were there, the movies can only do so much for you, but that was so raw and pure that. And the emotion you put into the role exactly in that point, it was I don't know how to, it was beautiful. As harsh as it was and as nasty as it was, your personality as Joe in that moment really brought everybody else with you, and it was amazing. The fact that it still sends shudders and shakes you to the core, it should do that to everybody.
Yeah, I think my only regret over the years of doing pre-war films was some of the comments you get from young people when they say, "Oh man, that was so cool. It was so badass the way you shot that German." And I think that really broke my heart when I realized there was certain people that just didn't understand that these were anti-war films. And that's the reason that I did them. I just would have never expected that it may have glorified war in some people's eyes, but that certainly wasn't the intent, and I hope that most sane people that watch these films understand that.
Well, yeah, and I think in the same film, one of the other great moments of that film was the look of anguish and emotion on your face when you realized you had to put the camera down and grab the M16 and start defending not only yourself but the brothers around you, and it was like the decision had been made for you, but you still weren't sure if it was the right one, and then you had to, and you did it to survive. I thought it was, if there's not a testament to anti-war besides that moment in that film, I don't know what is.
That's a great book. It's a tremendous book. We Were Soldiers Once and Young by Joe Galloway and General Hal Moore. And unfortunately, with that film, we were only able to capture half of the book. Obviously, you only have a couple hours to tell the story, and so there's so much more there. If check that book out, it's fantastic, and it's actually, I think, mandatory reading in most military colleges.
You've done many films with books as premise before the screenplay. Do you always go back and read the books?
Yeah, in fact, with True Grit, the Charles Portis novel is also a great read and in fact, the Coen brothers, that's what inspired them to retell that story. Was they had read the Charles Portis book to their children as a bedtime story, and they thought, man, this is nothing like the John Wayne True Grit. This is a story that deserves retelling, and so it's a short book, but it's excellent, and I'd highly recommend that one. Just that sort of hillbilly Shakespeare that Charles Portis created in the dialect and dialogue of the characters in that book is so great that the Coens I expanded on in the film. Anybody with young kids out there, because really it's sort of the Huckleberry Finn of a 13-year-old girl's coming of age story, is what it ultimately is in the book, and I think you'd really enjoy it.
Yeah, I heard that, and I haven't read the book yet, but I heard that it was a truer adaptation of the actual novel. Because when you hear nowadays, especially guys my age, because I'm 3 years older than you, so I'm extremely old. When you hear that they're remaking so many of these movies, that you say to yourself, stop messing with that. It's nothing wrong with the original.
Yeah.
But So I went ahead and watched it anyways because, hey, it's the Coen brothers. You're in it. Bridges is in it. Matt Damon's in it. All the great actors are in it. So I can't not watch it. So I went ahead and watched it and said, okay, now I get it. It's not the movie. It's not the same movie at all. I mean, the characters are the same.
Like you, I don't feel the original did the novel justice. And, I might be in a minority saying that, but, I think the John Wayne film certainly showcases John Wayne's versatility as an actor. I was amazed at his humor and his vulnerability, but I think the Coen's version is far more authentic to the book and really surprises you when you see it, because you're like, oh, I don't remember this from the original. In fact, many of us had never seen the original. I hadn't seen the original. I didn't even know that Robert Duvall had originally played Lucky Ned Pepper, which was wow, what an honor that was for me when I realized that, I had an opportunity to reprise a role that he had created. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I saw True Grit in the theaters with my parents at a drive-in in Concordia, Kansas.
No kidding. Wow. The original.
The original. And I was just a little tiny shaver, but we saw it.
Yeah. How cool is that?
Well, and back in the day, the movies didn't travel as fast. So to get it in the theater in Concordia, Kansas, I think I was 4. So it was like 2 years after it came out, we finally got it. But I can remember the rattlesnake pit scene very well. And that scared the hell out of me for life, I think, to the point where I still don't like snakes.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to fall in a hole and be bitten to death and lose my arm. Well, and now I know that she lost her arm.
That's right.
The first one didn't even go into that part of it. So that was
that's right. Yeah.
It was a great movie. Great and great job by everybody in that movie. I mean, you guys nailed it.
Haley was tremendous. She was 13. I believe she turned 13 on our set, but it was a great set environment as well, because everybody brought their kids, and Matt and Josh and Jeff and Coens, everybody had their kids on set, and of course, so it was a great environment for Haley, who was, like I say, 13 and really kind of shouldering this film, and boy, she did such a great job. I remember Josh filling up her swear jar. She had a little swear jar on set, and so anybody that cursed had to throw a buck into the swear jar or whatever it was. And I remember Josh. I think Josh Josh must have had several $100 in there.
Oh, now see, that's
put her through college.
No, that's funny, and that's the stuff that nobody knows about. I didn't even know she had a swear jar. That's awesome. Oh man!
Of all the movies that you've done, which one are you most proud of?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. There's all have been so different. Some of the little ones, some of the most difficult ones, you have very fond memories of that. May not have seen much of an audience. Like I produced or co-produced and starred in a little film that I shot in the Canadian Arctic called The Snow Walker. That I'm quite proud of because it was just so difficult to shoot. I mean, in the winter in the Arctic, 40 below, all the skin peeled off my ears from frostbite and well, not all the skin, but
right.
a good portion of it. And we had polar bears that were trying to come to our sets and because they could smell our food cooking, and we would do my makeup and on the tailgate of a pickup truck, and it was just so guerrilla, and it was so difficult that those ones really stand out in your mind. Just because you are amazed that you actually accomplished it on such a little budget and a brief schedule. But whether they are blockbusters or not, you tend to have very fond memories. And of course, films like Saving Private Ryan stand out in your mind just because of the experiences you had afterwards, meeting and speaking with veterans and just hearing what these real men and women went through. Those are the most standout memories in my mind. Hearing that it was authentic and that it helped them speak to their sons and daughters and grandchildren about their experience. They almost didn't have to speak because the film spoke for them. That's really, really rewarding as an actor. Then also too, it's so nice to have some fun once in a while and go and do the Lone Ranger and just get to play and even though everybody takes their work and their characters very seriously and the research is as deep and intense, it's more the film is more playful and it's more of an adventure, the traditional Disney epic adventure, and the same team that did Pirates of the Caribbean, and for me that's good for the soul every now and then to switch gears like that and go and do something a little bit more fun. Johnny would hate this story, but he actually inspired me to get into this business. About 20 years ago, he was shooting 21 Jump Street in my hometown in Vancouver, and I would see the trucks, parked in my neighborhood and thinking, one day I'd like to do that for a living. And 20 years later, here we are. And I don't know that he has fond memories of 21 Jump Street, but for me, as a young 20-something kid, just seeing that, shooting in my backyard was pretty extraordinary.
Now, I don't want to out you on your math abilities, but 20 years ago was 93. So I'm thinking it was probably closer to 25 or 30 years ago.
Yeah,
because I do the same thing. I say, hey, it was just 20 years ago. I'm like, wait a minute, no,
I
that's
know,
not right?
That's crazy. I guess it was a lot longer.
Well, everything is so. And see, this is why, as we grow older, we realize why old people always talk about the Great Storm of '58.
Yeah, that's right.
It's because it's so fresh in their mind still.
What the hell?
It's like, holy
Christ.
Christ.
It's hard to believe I'm turning 43 in a few days here, but yeah, you're right. It was a while back.
I have a lot of friends of mine who are Native Americans, and there was a lot of hubbub about Johnny being cast in that as opposed to an actual Native American. Do you have any thoughts or feelings on that?
Well, I thought that it was not necessarily much to do about nothing, but the fact that I spoke to Johnny directly about his bloodline, he does have Cherokee in his blood, and his grandmother was, I believe, Cree or Cherokee. It's just that, it's quite a difficult process, as I know here in Canada it is, to prove your lineage. You have to have, certain documents, and I think can only be proven on the matriarch side or something. It's quite a complicated process to gain status, and
yes, it is.
If you're not full blood, and so I don't know that it's something that he's ever bothered pursuing. But I think it's probably also kind of maybe a bit of a bother to him in some ways that people, don't believe, or don't feel that it's authentic. But I believe that. You look at him, you can't help but see in his
high cheekbones, swarthy skin, bent nose.
You look at him, and I think it's evident. But so I think he's just one of those kind of guys that is not going to make a fuss about it. But I thought it was beautiful that the Comanche Nation adopted him just recently, and I think for me, what I felt was that Tonto has always been sort of this sidekick, kind of in the shadows and a really kind of a marginalized character through the years. And here, Johnny comes, so, wanting to showcase Tonto for this really interesting, dynamic character that he is. And then I just thought that there was, I thought there was courage in that, and I really valued that. And I think people are going to be really impressed with how fun and what an amazing adventure this film is going to be. It's going to be a mind blower, one of the best westerns that you've seen in a long time. And I thought Johnny did just an amazing job of it.
Now, I have some other questions I want to ask you, and I know we've been talking for quite a while, and I don't want to keep you all day long, but when you were working with Spike Lee on the 25th Hour, did you do any popping and locking while you were there and show off the dance moves as an old breakdance instructor?
No, that never came up. But one cool thing about Spike is that I swear he cast me because I could play baseball. He on the weekends he has a baseball team, and all his cast and crew, are part of the ball team, and then he plays. We played against Billy Crystal and Robert De Niro and Analyze This, or all the other films that we're shooting in town, and all the other TV shows, whoever could put a baseball team together. So for Spike, that's almost as important as the film itself is playing baseball on the weekends.
Oh, God.
So I swear I was drafted for my ability to throw and hit.
Now, when you were playing Roger Maris in '61, that film, you play a lot of guys like that. I mean, Dale Earnhardt, Roger Maris, Joe Galloway. They're very real people. Did you get to meet Maris's family, and did they give you any instructions on how to be Maris?
No, they didn't. They didn't want to have anything to do with us in the beginning. They were very nervous about HBO telling their story because Roger had really suffered in the press in his career and even afterwards, and so they were very they kept us at arm's length and until they saw the film, and we screened it at the White House. Actually, we were invited to the White House and screened it there, and I believe that was the first time that I met them. And they, after the house lights came up and in the White House theater, they were in tears, and they came and they hugged us and thanked us, and it was a really powerful evening. And then I became very good friends with them. I have been over the years. I attended the Roger Maris Mickey Mantle golf tournament in Fargo for a lot of years, and they're just really a wonderful family. Going to really love them.
Now, did you have to do anything different to prepare for the emotional baggage that came with Roger Maris's riff with the press? I mean, he towards the end of the run in '61, you did a great job of showing everybody the stress and losing the hair and all the rest of that amazing pressure that was put on him. How did you get into character for something that heavy?
Well, I think you just go through it. You go with it like floating down a river, wherever it takes you. You can't really prepare for that. But it was emotionally charged from the beginning, because of the tight shooting schedule. In fact, my daughter was born the week of principal photography. And, everybody, of course, felt the pressure of getting the film right, and, no one more than Billy. And so, we were certainly a bundle of raw nerves, and while we were filming it, it was a short shoot, and we didn't have a huge budget. But I think that the training camp, the Reggie Smith training camp, was probably the most arduous part of it. I spent about a month previous to the training camp with my brother, just him throwing soft toss and hitting off a tee in my backyard till my hands bled, because of Roger, hitting on the other side of the plate from me. I had to switch from right to left, and the mechanics of it were like retraining your brain after having a stroke. It took real coordination, and you just slowly, the cogs in your brain start clicking onto the other side. I wouldn't have done the film if I had to throw with my left hand. It would have just been a hopeless disaster. But fortunately, Roger threw with his right, but hit left, and so that took a long time. But the first time you step up to the plate and you face a real pitcher, we spent months in the cages, but then you get up to the plate and you face a real, somebody who can throw major league heat, and even catching a ball from somebody who can throw at major league speed felt like you just shattered every bone in your hand. So that took that took a lot, and then of course, needless to say, Billy and Haskell Wexler made us all look good with movie magic. But it was pretty humbling. I would never, and then after all that training and eating and weightlifting for months, I realized that I was still 30 pounds lighter than Roger, and I'd never be a pure power hitter like he was. I could run and field a ball with the best of them, but throwing and hitting was another story altogether at that level.
Now, when you were learning to bat on the other side of the plate, how did it finally click in your head that was the mechanics you needed to learn? Did you have to tell yourself that the right arm pushes and the left arm pulls?
Yeah, it was just absolutely basic mechanics, just breaking it down to every beat. And then once you actually can make contact and hit at a decent level, then I had to start emulating Roger's swing, and that, so, because Mickey and Roger had very specific styles, and with the way that they held their bodies and the way they swung, the way they ran, the way they threw. So it was a very complex role in that sense, because you had the accent, the look, the physical mannerisms, the way he played ball, and then, like you mentioned before, the emotional storyline.
Yeah, the emotional turmoil. As a former college athlete, those kinds of things are so ridiculous, even at that level, that I just wanted to turn off the DVD and go, you know what? I don't like the press, so I'm not going to watch this part.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like there's sharks in the water no matter what you do. And I thought you told that story very well, especially when, there's one scene where you're like, you tell me I'm not, when I strike out, you think I'm hitting for the fences. When I bunt, you think I'm afraid to hit.
Yeah, you can't win for losing.
Exactly. And I think that's the way it is. The press has become such a shark-filled, ocean that no matter what you do, you're going to get bad press out of it.
One thing I remember Now that you mention it, I got so into Roger's emotional state that it was really hard not to take it personal and feel very protective of him in an odd way, because every day, we'd have legions of fans in the stands, and they'd be booing me every day, and on set, and I'm smoking in the dugout and these non-filtered Camels, and Billy and Thomas, and that's the way they drank beer and smoked, and
right.
Nobody did weight training. It was just a totally different game at that time. I think Roger made $36,000 a year. And a lot of the guys had to, supplement working on farms and jobs in the off season. But anyway, Billy and Thomas, they had this really close bond that, I started to get kind of jealous of, because Billy knew Mickey for about 20 years before Mickey passed away, and they were really close friends. And Mickey, said to Billy, if anybody ever tells my story, I want you to do it. And so Billy really knew. He didn't know the Maris family. He didn't know Roger that well. So of course Thomas and Billy had this, quite a close bond on set, and I didn't realize it at the time, but there was most of the time I was totally alone, and it scared the crap out of me. And I think that, in the Maris family were understandably skeptical of us, and so it all compounded my nerves and not having their input and approval. And in hindsight, I suppose it all helped channel the right emotions into the film. But it's funny how those things happen. Like I say, it's just sort of like floating down a river. You don't anticipate any of that.
Well, I don't think that you could, really.
No.
I mean, it seems like there's just so much. You have such an expressive face, and when you combine it with the great script and the emotional baggage, and then of course you feeling isolated and very alone while doing it. I mean, that's a perfect storm for a fantastic movie. And I'm sorry to say this, but it was on your shoulders as a burden to carry. But you did such a great job of it. Looking back, could you have done anything different?
No, and I think that's the genius of great directors like Billy, and he probably was well aware of that. I mean, he probably manufactured it, but just didn't tell me.
Well, and it's
and then the same with Steven on Steven Spielberg on Saving Private Ryan. He put us through hell in that boot camp, and then flew us straight to Ireland the next day, bearded and dirty and pissed off, and to start filming the next day right out of boot camp. We were near mutiny by the time we were done with that boot camp, but he flew us straight to Ireland to shoot the Normandy invasion. He thought, and at the time as actors, we didn't understand what is going on. We've had no rehearsal. This is just ridiculous, and we're going to screw it up. But it was, in hindsight, again, so genius that he did it that way, because we just looked beaten down and homesick and scared to death as actors when we hit those beaches.
A lot of people don't realize this, but the entire Saving Private Ryan story is basically just a paragraph in Stephen Ambrose's book, Band of Brothers. So
that's right.
You made a mention of how short a story True Grit was, and then a lot of people wouldn't know that Saving Private Ryan, a 2-hour movie, was based off of 12 lines.
Yeah, I believe it was based on the Sullivan brothers, a true life family that had suffered a similar tragedy with several of their sons that were in different areas of service. But yeah, you're right.
Now, do you have a comfort zone that you prefer to be in, whether it's leading man or support actor?
No, I really don't. I think what I find most fulfilling is character acting. I love the costumes and period, and I love the mask of it all. I thoroughly enjoy that, the accents and the stepping into the skin of a character, as opposed to playing things that are too close to myself. I love the theater of it.
Well, and I think I don't know that this is a true statement, but I've heard grumblings in the past that a lot of actors don't like to be pigeonholed or even use the term character actor. They either want to be the lead or nothing, and it seems to me that character actors are where all the good is, all the acting is.
I can't think of anything more pigeonholing than playing yourself in every movie. I mean that's great for the guys who can do it and enjoy that, and we certainly need them. But that's just not my cup of tea. It's a really funny thing, It's a sort of an odd juxtaposition. Not enjoying. I don't enjoy being photographed. I don't enjoy interviews, although I've thoroughly enjoyed this one.
I appreciate that.
I don't enjoy the business side of it, selfishly. But it's funny. I was so opposed to promotion and interviews and press and all that and Twitter. and a director friend of mine said, this is the greatest way to actually appreciate your fans is to because I try to answer fan mail but I'm terrible at it and so I thought, that's true. This is a way to actually reach your fans and let them know how much you appreciate the fact that they're supporting your work and without them that there would be no work. So I reluctantly joined Twitter. I'm a Twitter neophyte, but trying to answer some people's questions that have things they want to know about or what have you, and just let people know that you care.
Well, and you're for everybody out there that's listening, the Twitter address to follow Barry is @BarryPepper. You can't miss it. It's right there, and he is a neophyte. He's got 81 tweets as of right this second, and only 677 followers. So get on it, people.
This was not a plea for followers.
No, I'm not saying that it is. But if you're gonna put if you're gonna put yourself out there for appreciation, we got to have the people let them know where they can tell you that you're appreciated.
Right on.
And I think, everyone always says, why do you tweet so much? I'm like, well, I tweet so much because there's people out there that I want to talk to.
Yeah.
And the only way that I can do that without actually, moving to LA and going door to door is, through the beauty of technology.
That's right.
And I'm pretty sure that if I went door to door, I would get run out of town because I know you don't know what I look like, but I'm an ex-offensive lineman. I'm 6'2", 340 pounds of angry. So
right on.
I got the beard, the goatee, and the spiky hair, and all the jewelry. It looks like I fell off my Harley. So
brothers from another mother.
And it's funny because everything that you said about doing the gardening, living out in the woods, leaving the business behind, getting away from Hollywood, blacksmithing. I have a love for blacksmithing like you wouldn't believe. When I saw that picture you put up of the knife you just hammered out of the railroad spike, that's absolutely gorgeous. Now, do you have your own forge or do you go somewhere else to do that?
No, I built my own smithy, and it's not a big smithy, but it's just it's fantastic. I mean, it's in my bloodline. I mean, all of my grandfathers and great-grandfathers were blacksmiths and farriers, so I inherited a few tools, and then I just scrounged and found the others in various places. You'd run into somebody that had an anvil, or they were looking to sell an old forge, and it's really hard equipment to find.
Yes, it is.
People have either sent it to the scrap yards, or they've got it hanging on their walls as antiques, and then there's guys like myself and you want to use it. You want to bring it back to life, and it's obviously a very rudimentary art form, but man, there's just nothing like it. I just love metalwork, and I'm those letter openers that I posted, they're just really rudimentary stuff. I mean, there's some exquisite work that guys are doing, but I'm just learning, and but I love it. There's nothing like the ring of the anvil to, take your aggressions out after leaving LA.
You're absolutely right. I mean, and see, that's funny because And I had an opportunity back in the day to pick up a forge, but I had nowhere to put it because I was basically, one paycheck away from moving home. So I had everything that would fit in my car, and that was all I had. So I couldn't, store this. And then somebody scrapped it, and I missed it. But was going.
What? But you know what, brother? If you go online on YouTube, there's guys that have made forges out of like garbage cans and a hairdryer. I mean, there's some really creative stuff going on that you don't need all the fancy equipment, and that's what's so cool about it. Is if you enjoy working with metal, and you really don't need, you really don't need much. A pair of pliers and some charcoal and a garbage can and a hairdryer or whatever. You can do a lot with very little, and it's really just your imagination that is limiting you.
You know what? I have so much more that I want to talk to you about. I just want to.
What? We'll do part 2.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to make sure that you have the invitation anytime that you find yourself in the Midwest, especially if it's any sort of hunting season. I do turkey hunting, we do deer hunting, and we don't do it for just the beards and the racks. We fill the freezer. So, and I can't even tell you how many pounds of meat over the last 20 years we've donated to the food programs that they have for the people who can't afford meat. We turn it all over and they mix it and match it and send it off to people who need meat. So there's a great program in both Kansas and Missouri.
If we were to sit down and have dinner afterwards and eat some of what we harvested, I'd be happy to join you, brother.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, that's one of the things we do with the backstraps. It's immediately to the barbecue.
Beautiful.
Kindred
spirit.
Exactly. And, so many more things. You're such a fantastic and interesting person to talk to. If you ever get here to the Midwest and come to the studio, we'll just do a whole day of us bullshitting because this is amazing.
Sounds good. That sounds great.
I want to say thank you very much, Mr. Barry Pepper, for hanging out with Ross and myself. Fantastic interview. I hope to see as great a success with the Lone Ranger as you had with the rest of the fantastic movies you've been in.
Thank you. Very kind of you guys. I thoroughly enjoyed this morning and really appreciate you asking me on.
Well, especially since you don't even like doing interviews.
I like doing interviews like this.
Well, we like having interviews like this. This is fantastic.
Right on. Thank you.
Black Sky Radio.